This business day was actually just like any other, at least at the beginning, because on this day an old man came into the car dealership who looked completely different from the rest of the customers. He had sloppy clothes and didn't look like he could afford expensive cars. The interesting thing was that he came to the dealership not just once, but several times in a row. His presence slowly became unpleasant for the employees, so one of them was assigned to put an end to it. It was an employee named Benny, whom the owner assigned to throw the old man out of the store. This was, of course, a pretty unpleasant thing, especially because the old, sloppy-looking man was really nice. But Benny had no choice but to comply with his boss's request. It was very unpleasant for Benny to have to throw the old man out of the shop. It didn't help much either, because shortly afterwards he was back in the shop. This time, however, the story ended completely differently and even changed Benny's life. It was a pretty bad experience for him to send the nice old man away, but he didn't stay away for long. Suddenly, some cars came to the car dealership and the old man came back. This time, however, he wasn't alone. He had brought some friends with him. The man came back into the shop and was accompanied by several people. They went straight to Benny and did something surprising. He introduced himself to Benny, and Benny simply couldn't believe what he was hearing from him. He didn't know anything about it. Moreover, the situation seemed familiar to him. He had seen it a few days before and didn't know whether he should get involved. He didn't want to cause any trouble. But when the man kept coming into the shop, it became quite strange after a while. Benny had a lot of experience selling luxury cars. He had been in the business for over 5 years and was one of the best salespeople in the business. Selling expensive, high-quality cars was in his veins, and he had his own special clientele. The man in his old clothes was clearly not one of them. If he had just looked around, he would have been different, but several weeks had passed, and the old man was constantly in the shop. He soon asked himself what he was actually doing here. 5 weeks ago, Benny saw the man for the first time, browsing through the cars. He knew immediately that he wasn't going to sell him a car, and he was slowly starting to attract the attention of other customers. It was strange to everyone what he was doing there. The first time they didn't do anything, but he kept coming back. They thought he might be a little disturbed and couldn't explain his behavior any other way. Over the next few days, the man kept coming back. This time he stayed for a longer time. The old man came back to the car dealership and always stayed for a longer time. Benny offered to help him right from the start, but of course the old man didn't want to buy a car. He noticed early on that he was a really old man and could hardly walk. He really wondered why he needed a car. Above all, why did he come to such an expensive shop? He wasn't sure whether he should talk to him or just let him look at the cars. The old man was even offered free coffee or water, but he never accepted it. He was only interested in the cars. Others had noticed his behavior, and customers began to complain about him. They obviously felt disturbed by him. Since Benny's customers were often high profile, this happened more and more often. Benny did not like this behavior at all. However, he was not the owner of the car dealership, so he could not make decisions on such matters himself and had to agree with the customers. The owner of the car dealership was not often in the shop. He had better things to do than to be there all the time, so the shop was run by a salesman. He would visit every 2 weeks to check on things. As the old man visited the dealership more and more regularly, it was only a matter of time before the two met. When the old man was in the shop for the 5th time, the day came when the owner also went to the shop. The old man stood quietly in the back of the shop and admired the fancy cars. To him, the owner did look disinterested. He instead turned to Benny and demanded why this old man was there, as he had no time for such people, those who could not afford anything. He had been coming around for days, Benny explained, never causing any trouble, just looking at the cars. But to the owner, that didn't matter. He was running a business, not a museum. He ordered Benny to remove him. Benny hesitated, his heart falling. Unlike the rich clients who just use cars as status symbols, this old man genuinely loved them. But Benny had no choice. He regretfully walked up to him and politely explained that he wasn't wanted in the restaurant. The old man didn't fight it. He just hung his head and nodded, turning to leave toward the door. As he reached the door, he turned around and, with a soft voice, thanked Benny for being nice to him. "I won't forget that," he said, then disappeared. Those words disturbed Benny and remained long in his memory even after what happened was very minute. The days passed, business as usual, and he tried to put it out of his mind, although deep inside, he almost wished the old man would come back. Then something strange started to happen. The once thriving dealership started to lose customers. At first, Benny and his co-workers simply thought it was a slow period. But as the days dragged into weeks, the silence on the showroom floor became deafening. No new clients, no test drives, no closed deals. The workers got nervous and started whispering to each other, while Benny felt the weight of uncertainty weighing down. Something was not okay. Calls to regular customers made the same feedback. No one was looking to buy a car. It couldn't be a pattern if it was coincidence. But without proof, Benny could do nothing but watch the dealership crumble. 3 weeks passed. No sale was made. What once used to be a bustling showroom slowly became a ghost town. Then the inevitable call finally came. An emergency meeting with the owner. The man was frustrated, but deep down in their hearts, they knew what to expect. The business had reached a breaking point. The dealership was closing, and everyone was being laid off. Benny sat in stunned silence. His stable job, the one he had relied on, was gone. The words of the old man seemed to still echo in his mind, sending a chilly run down his spine as he walked home. Could he have had something to do with this? Yet the thought was impossible. Still, Benny couldn't rid himself of the feeling it was all connected. And then, just as hopelessness threatened to drown him, a letter came. A dealership, one that Benny had never heard of, requested his presence. The store was reopening under new management, and all old employees were invited in to be questioned. He refused at first, but then something about the secrecy, about the timing, whatever that meant, maybe this meeting would uncover some mistake in the bankruptcy filing. A mistake that could get him the money that he was owed. Or maybe it was entirely different. Whatever it was, he had to know. When he arrived, Benny expected to meet a stranger. Instead, he froze in the doorway, his breath catching in his throat. Sitting behind the desk, in a position of undeniable authority, was a face he knew all too well. The old man. Benny's heart pounded as realization crashed over him. He had assumed some businessman had bought the dealership, but no. Before him sat the very man whom he was forced to throw out, now in control with sharp amusement in his eyes. It seemed like he had just waited for it. Hardly, with difficulty, after dry swallowing, a hoarse whisper escaped his mouth. "Sir, I didn't expect it to be you. More knowledgeable." The old man deepened the smile on purpose. And Benny knew then it was no accident. It was a plot. Whatever was to come next would change his life forever. "Benny," the man said with a hint of familiarity in his voice, "I think we have a lot to discuss. Please take a seat." Benny's legs felt weak beneath him as he slowly walked to the chair across from the desk. 1,000 questions swirled through his mind, but he knew he had to keep his composure and maintain the facade of professionalism. Benny sat down and watched as his new boss leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk and lacing his fingers together. There was an aura of intrigue about the man, an aura that both intrigued and unsettled Benny. The man's eyes bored into Benny's, as if he was searching for something, as if he was looking into the depths of his soul. It was an uncomfortable look that made Benny squirm in his seat, but he refused to look away. He needed answers, and he sensed that this man held the key. The seconds stretched into an eternity as silence filled the room and anticipation hung heavy in the air. Benny's palms grew sweaty, his mind racing to solve the mystery before him. Who was this person? What connection did they have to him? The tension was unbearable. Finally, the man's voice broke the silence and cut through the tension like a knife. "Benny," he began in a measured and deliberate tone, "I've been watching you closely over the last few months." Benny's eyes widened, his heart pounding in his chest. How could he be being watched without his knowledge? You have unique abilities, the man continued, his words filled with a mixture of admiration and fascination. Benny's mind was spinning as he tried to comprehend the magnitude of what was being revealed. How could this stranger know about his abilities and talents that he had never mentioned? The man leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. I believe you have the qualities needed for a certain venture, he said with calculated confidence in his voice. Benny's curiosity grew, his mind sparkling with possibilities. What venture could it be? And why was it being considered? You see, Benny, the man's gaze deepened, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. I have a proposition for you, an opportunity that could change your life if you're willing to take the plunge. Benny's heart pounded in his ears, his breath caught in his throat. This was the turning point he had been waiting for. Benny's eyes turned to the man, searching for a clue, a hint of what lay ahead. But the secret remained intact and shrouded in mystery, with a mixture of fear and excitement. He found his voice and summoned the courage to answer. I'm listening, Benny said, a new determination in his voice. As the words left his lips, Benny prepared himself for the revelation of what lay behind this secret encounter. The man leaned forward, a spark of satisfaction dancing in his eyes, and with a voice full of strength and familiarity, he finally spoke the words. The man standing in front of him looked all too familiar. He smiled at Benny and said, I told you I wouldn't forget you. Benny was stunned and just stared at him. In fact, it was the old man who came into the shop a few months ago. Benny just asked, completely astonished. How is that even possible? You could see that he was very confused and couldn't explain the situation at all. Soon, however, he would understand everything and was absolutely stunned by the news. It quickly became apparent that the old man was not just a simple car enthusiast. It turned out that he was actually a very wealthy businessman. In fact, he was one of the richest in town. He had wanted to buy the shop for a long time and wasn't just looking at the cars. Benny was simply speechless. It was important to him to visit the shop for a longer period of time to get a better look at the conditions. When he was thrown out by the previous owner, he had already decided to buy it. The new owner didn't just want to make a formal offer, but wanted to get the lowest price possible. Benny didn't yet understand what he meant by that, but that would soon change. It quickly became apparent that he had been getting customers to wait to buy a car. That was a reason why almost no one wanted to buy anything in the last few months. The new owner knew full well that many customers were waiting to buy a new car. His plan was successful, but of course it was anything but ideal for the employees.